Hello crafty friends, it's Alicia here with the project for Tailored Expressions. In today's video, I'm going to be using products from the new Whimsical Wings card making kit to create two cards that are kind of the same but a little bit different. The new Whimsical Wings card making kit is full of moths, but in a good way. The kit includes the Whimsical Wings stamp and stencil combo, which features a big red rubber stamp with 5 moth designs and coordinating stencils to color those in. You get a coordinating die with alignment squares to make cutting the images out easy, the new Hello signature die, and the Insider's Whimsical Wings edition, which makes adding a sentiment super easy. Available outside of the kit is the Lush Greenery background stamp, the signature Hello backer die, coordinating envelope seals, and Foil Whimsical Wings, which has a set that kind of matches the stamp and one that is more of an outline. Previously released products that I'll be using today include A2 postage stamp Stacklets and the Frayed Edge masking stencil set. For my color palette, I got out Cardstock in Peaches and Cream, Cilantro, Pumpkin, Pineapple, and Oyster, and I got out the same inks except for the Pumpkin. I will also be using some sugar cube cardstock for ink blending and a little die cutting, and I also got out a piece of vellum. For stamping, I got out the exclusive Teal Misty and the Just Press tool, and I will be foiling on one of my cards, so I pulled in the Mini Mink, Silver Deco foil, and the Foil Magic Shims, which you get 2 per package. And I'll be using a variety of adhesives to hold everything together. Let's get crafty! For one of my cards today, I'm going to be stamping the moths, and for the second one, I will be foiling them. This is just a way to show you how you can use the same basic layout and colors, but use different techniques so your cards can look different. I got the Whimsical Wings stamp set up onto a scrap of sugar cube cardstock and then inked it up with Oyster. I did ink it up and stamp it a couple times just to make sure I got nice, even coverage. Off camera, I prepared 2 top fold Oyster card bases, and now I'm going to put some tone-on-tone texture on these with the Lush Greenery background stamp and the Oyster ink. I added some adhesive to the back of the card, and then I'm going to put that kind of in the center of the Misty so my background stamp can bleed off all of the edges. Once my card base was in place, I put the background stamp face down on top of it, picked it up with the door of the Misty, and then got it inked and stamped. I did make sure on this one to use the Just Press tool and press a little extra hard so that I would get that entire impression on the card front. I stamped the second card base in that same exact way. For my second set of moths, I'm going to be using silver foil on one of the foilet panels. I thought that this would go well with the gray from the color palette. I pre-cut a little piece of silver foil, and I am using a magic shim in my carrier sheet to get a nice foiled impression. My Mini Mink was heating up off screen for a few minutes, so I pulled that in and then I put the carrier sheet through the Mink, making sure the fold goes first. Now do be careful when this comes out on the other side, it is a little bit warm. You will also want to set it to the side and make sure it cools off completely before you peel back the foil. And speaking of that, it is almost like magic. Look at that shine. Now it's time to add some color with the coordinating stencils and the remaining colors that I chose for today's cards. I'm going to start by adding color to the stamp moths, and I'm going to hold that in place, just tack it temporarily with some adhesive. I did go ahead and put it in one of the pre-printed rectangles, just so if it moves, I will be able to put it back easily later. Now, one of the awesome things about this set is that there are some stamped squares that align with squares in each of the stencil. So I took a minute, got those lined up, and then I hold stencil number 1 in place with some labeling tape. On the first stencil, I used Peaches and Cream, and I used clockwise and counterclockwise motions with my blender brush. Once that color was complete, I removed the stencil and then pulled in stencil number 2, and for this I am using yellow, the pineapple. For the third and final stencil, I used Cilantro, and once again I just ink blended until I liked the shade of the color in each of the openings, and now it's time for the reveal. I have to say I loved how easy it was to color in these moths. Now I'm going to use the same process but in reverse since I already have the cilantro ink and stencil out, but this time I'll be coloring in the foiled piece. I love how quick and easy it was to color in all of these moths. And here's a close-up look at the foiled one. Just gorgeous. Let me know which is your favorite in the comment section below. Next, I want to prepare the background for my images. So off camera, I cut 2 pieces of sugar cube cardstock with the second from largest postage stamp stacklet. Now for this, I'm going to do a little more ink blending, and I'm going to be using the small mask from that masking stencil set. Instead of stenciling within a mask, I'm going to be stenciling around it. I started by tacking down my postage stamp piece and the mask in the center of that with some Scotch tape runner. Then I pulled in the Peaches and Cream ink and the orange blending brush, and I blended in that upper left corner, kind of at a diagonal with the first color. When I liked the area that I had covered with the orange, I then brought in the pineapple or the yellow, and I did the same diagonal direction, and I filled up about another third of the outside. Finally, I brought in the cilantro to do that bottom right-hand corner. I did go in between each of the colors with the previous brush just to get a nice blend. And here's a look at that with that fun deckled border. I ink blended the second postage stamp piece in the same way. My next step was to use that coordinating die on my moth panels, and once again it has those great squares to help with alignment. To hold the die in place while I run it through the die cutter, I use a couple pieces of Scotch removable tape. This tape doesn't tear when you remove it from your cardstock or paper, and it can be reused over and over until there's no stick left. Here's a look at all of those die cut moths. How fun are these? While I was in the die cutting mode, I went ahead and cut my sentiment for the front. I'm cutting the signature hello from a piece of pumpkin cardstock. I just like that pop of color with the rest of the combo that I chose. And I'm going to be cutting the backer from a piece of vellum. Because the word itself is pretty thin, I did add a piece of TE sticky sheet to the back of the scrap of pumpkin. This way, once it's die cut, it already has adhesive on the back. Once those were both die cut, I removed the centers of the E and the O from the hello die, and then I got this placed onto its vellum mat. Now for this, if you have it pre-sticky like this, you will want to take this kind of slow. Place it lightly so there's an even vellum border all the way around it, and when everything looks good, that's when you can go ahead and press that down into place firmly. All of the parts of the card are ready, so now we can start assembling it. To do this, I laid out my sentiment and the moths where I wanted them to go on the card, and then I had to pause for a minute because I thought, you know what, this is missing something. That white center needs a little added texture. So for this, I brought in the TE Brick embossing folder. This is one of my favorites. Now just a heads up, this is a retiring product, so once it's gone, it is gone. Make sure to check out the description box to get yours. I love the added texture it gives, and I think this was just perfect for this piece. I'm going to adhere this flat down to the front center of the card with some tape runner. Now the good thing about the tape runner is it does give you some time to replace it if it's not straight. And then for the moths themselves, I brought in some foam tape from Tailored Expressions and put that on the back of each moth. Now I'm going to relay out the elements once again, and when those are in the place I want them, I pull the release paper and get my moths adhered down. For the hello, I'm going to adhere that flat down onto that postage stamp piece, and for this I'm using liquid glue that's in a fine tip bottle. I tried to keep the glue behind where the pumpkin die cut was, and then I got that put in place. I finished off the front of both cards and let those dry, and off camera I added to the inside one of the insider sentiment pieces, and on the one that had foiling on the front I foiled the sentiment. Also on the inside I added another moth just to use up some of those pretty pieces. To finish off the cards, I brought in silver matte enamel dots for the card that had the stamping, and some bits and pieces silver drip drops for the card with the foiling. I added some to the front of each, and here are some close-up looks at the finished cards. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch today's video. If you enjoyed the process, a thumbs up is appreciated. And if you're not already a subscriber, we do hope you'll click on the button below so you're the first to know about our latest videos. To find out more about the products I used today, you can check out the links in the description box below or visit the Tailored Expressions online store at tailoredexpressions.com.